3, cosmetic products, public health, enforcement and penalties, prohibited ingredients. And with that, we will start. Chris, can we start with 658? This is Delegate Charkoudian's bill, Community Forensic Aftercare Program. We had some discussion before, and I believe, just remind us as you go through it, if we actually took the initial amendments. I think we did, and we were ready to move forward, and there was a suggestion that we hold the bill. So could you go through it with us, Chris?
That's my understanding too, Madam Chair. So the bill codifies the Community Forensic Aftercare Program within the Department of Health to monitor persons committed as not criminally responsible who are on conditional release and individuals with mental illness or intellectual disability who are required to be monitored under statutory provisions pertaining to them being found not to be criminally responsible or incompetent to stand trial. The bill also specifies new requirements for the program. It codifies the program's existing board, consisting of licensed healthcare providers to make recommendations and decisions relating to conditional release and out-of-state travel requests is specified. MDH must adopt regulations to carry out the bill. The amendments that were voted on made technical changes, removed the notice requirement, and allows an authorized agent to attend a board meeting virtually. It replaces specified meeting timelines with a discretionary standard and adds notice requirements for an appointed advocate and counsel. It includes healthcare providers and a records disclosure requirement and removes other reporting requirements. And it makes other technical changes and clarifying changes, including pushing the effective date back 1 year.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Is Delegate Charkoudian on here? Okay. So we,
apologies, Chair.
okay, hi. And I believe the last time we took the sponsors' amendments and we voted those on, and then the bill was held. And I think Delegate Austin had some amendments they wanted to offer. Did you want to speak to the bill?
Thank you for the opportunity. I will just say that we are very much in favor of the sponsor amendments, which have already been accepted, and we appreciate the subcommittee's work on that. We have seen a copy of the new amendments, which I won't speak to if we're not ready to discuss that yet. But we are very much in favor of the bill as it has already been voted on as a result of much collaboration with different stakeholders, including the Department of Health and the Office of Public Defender, who are also, as I understand, in favor of that posture. And I'm happy to answer any questions and speak to the offered amendments when appropriate.
Okay. All right, very good. So I think Delegate Austin, you offered an amendment. Chris, can you go over the amendment?
I can. I was planning to defer to the
Delegate
delegate for her
Austin?
amendments.
All right, she
Or
is not here.
Delegate
Denise,
Charkoudian.
did the amendment come from you?
No.
Ask me,
Oh,
did the amendment come from you?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to
Okay.
speak to them if that would help. Let me pull them up here.
Can you explain what it is, or
Sure.
can you speak to what you're asking for?
Sure, happy to. So we are looking to, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. So Denise Gilmore here with AFSCME Council 3. We represent the monitors in the CFAP program. And we appreciate the work that's gone into the bill so far. We are looking to align the bill more closely to the conditional release orders that come out. So on page 5, line 5 of the bill, we look to allow for let's see, so we look to strike, let me pull this up here.
It's okay. You can just explain the concept. You don't have to go through
Okay,
it.
perfect. All right. I appreciate that.
Okay.
So we are looking to align the conditional release orders. So what they do, our monitors currently, they work in team with the community providers. So we want to make sure that we allow our conditional, our CFAP monitors an opportunity with those conditional release orders, that we allow them to continue to provide an opportunity to do treatment decisions. We also, further down in the page, while they're not the primary treatment providers, no one is claiming they are primary
okay.
treatment providers.
Just a summary. I mean, so you're saying that you don't think this allows them to do what they're doing, right?
Correct.
Okay, so my understanding, because I've gone through this bill,
Mhm.
and I want to go over that and we'll open it up for questions. The program says this program monitor committed persons or on conditional release in accordance with the order of the court and the recommendations of the committed person's mental health team. And the CFAS are the people who are tasked with that monitoring. They are also the people, as I understand it, who if they see violations or they see that folks aren't being compliant, have the authority and the power to make the recommendations to the court about what should happen, or to the health team. My understanding is they do converse and consult with the health team. And one of the reasons that we're using the clinical social workers in this role is because of that training. But it seems to me, as I read their responsibilities, that if they're in the position of actually making clinical decisions as opposed to giving clinical advice to the team, then they're in a conflict with their role of overseeing. And that, in fact, having spoken, I think, to the department and to the sponsor, I think the goal here was to put into statute what the current practices are and or should be. And that is one of the things. That's a conflict. They can certainly make recommendations as this bill is written. And it says so explicitly. So I would say that I don't think that what you're asking is consistent with what their unconflicted role is supposed to be, and that it actually puts the individuals who are being monitored in a potentially compromised position. And I think that this clarity that they can make those recommendations to the teams who are actually making the decisions and to the court is clear. And since the sponsor's not here, I wanted to just chime in on that. Any members want to ask any questions or have any comments about that amendment?
Delegate Hill, do you mind if I give
Yes.
one of our monitors an opportunity to respond to that?
Well, I don't want to relitigate.
Okay.
All right, so I want to see if the members have any questions. If they want to ask that question, they can certainly do that. Delegate Martinez, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think, Denise, we had a similar mindset because I wanted to know if what Delegate Hill said was true. And so if you could have someone to kind of talk through that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Philip, I know that you are on. Would you like to?
And we'll give you a minute, Philip.
Thank you. Could you just repeat the question or the clarity that's being asked for?
The question was, based on what I said, do you have anything to inform or to contradict what I just said?
I understand where you're coming from in terms of the conflict of interest. I think our role is a unique role in that we do monitor individuals in the community and we do participate with treatment plans and offering recommendations. We also participated in that process because we have a lot of information on those individuals, historical information that the treatment providers may not have or have, and they're so far down that they just haven't had a chance to review it. And I think our decision-making roles do come into play at certain times, not as primary treatment providers, not by any means, but as clinicians in the community.
And well, again, no one's asking you to take off the clinician hat. That's why that's specified that that's what you have. You can't take your hat off, but your role is not to make those direct recommendations. It's to advise on in your best professional opinion what it is. And so I think these amendments would be counter to that. But from the Office of the Public Defender, Ms. Ballo, since you had raised your hand, did you have something you wanted to add? And thank you, Philip, for clarifying that.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Did
thank
you-
you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Lindsay Baylog. I'm a social worker with the Office of the Public Defender, and I'm also an AFSCME member. I just wanted to add that I think you're absolutely right, Delegate Hill, on your take on, having clinicians that make recommendations but not actual decisions is the right approach. I mean, that is what the Department of Health told us when we had many meetings with them about this particular bill. And I also want to add that it doesn't prevent a CFAP monitor from doing still clinical actions such as writing an EP, emergency petitioning someone if need be. If an individual is in an acute state of distress, really struggling, a CFAP monitor can still write an EP. They can still, speak with the treatment team and make those recommendations. It's just the clinical decision making should not ever be landing in their laps
Okay.
outside of the role.
All right, thank you. And I see your hand up, Ms. Verghese, but I'm gonna hold it. You're also from the OPD. We are good. I'm just gonna ask, does anyone want to move the amendment?
Move the amendments, the conceptual.
Is there a second? I don't see a second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I can ask if you are going to consider this amendment, if we could hear from the bill sponsor or her staff.
Staff was on earlier and spoke, but if you're still on?
Thank
because
you.
I-
Yes, I am here. I just thank you for the opportunity, both Chair Bagnall and Subcommittee Chair Hill. We are very much in opposition of these new amendments. We feel that it goes against the work that we've done on this bill and some of the very concerning
Some
aspects.
of Lord shit now.
I fucking can't stand the Lord.
Hold on.
You're,
Sorry.
You're unmuted.
Sorry.
Thank you. Some of the concerning aspects include there is as I understand from the reprint, there is a provision to remove having an advocate in the CFAP community board meetings, which we believe very strongly in. And as OPD explained regarding the treating relationship, we think it's very important to keep those roles separate, considering the nature of the CFAP monitor position. And we are very much against the amendments that have been proposed as they stand.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Okay, so it's been.
Madam
moved and
Chair, could I move to hold the bill?
You want to hold the bill?
Yeah, could
We get one hold. Are we, Madam Chair, since you're here, is it too close or we still have time?
We still have time.
Because I would like to move this
I-
bill. I would really
I-
like to move the bill.
I think there might be confusion as to what the motion was on, because there was a motion on amendments conceptually, but that doesn't sound like it's the bill
So let me
as
back
previously
up.
amended. So
Let me
let's make
back
sure,
up. And-
I
all right,
just
so
want to
let-
make
let
sure
me
we are all
clarify.
clear on what we're voting on.
I'm going to start over. Delegate Austin, you weren't here. Denise presented the amendments in concept. You have actually submitted an amendment. Chris wanted to defer. I have opined that I think that the amendment is in conflict with the bill and that we should take the bill as we've already, as we addressed it the last time. And I sort of explained, and then we had Mr. Hans speak, and then we had someone from OPD speak. Then Delegate Martinez moved AFSCME's amendment, and Delegate Warman gave a second on that, and that's where we're. Delegate Riley, please. On the amendment, or we're sort of confused about
Thank-
where we are, but I'm gonna
thank
bring
you,
it right
Madam
back
Chair.
because I'm about to make a decision.
Okay, so I actually looked at this bill earlier, first of all, what is the last version that we're actually looking at? with the amendments already on it and the reprint. Is that from 311 or do we got something after that? I think.
Chris?
What are you looking, can you tell me?
The amendment that the original amendment is the amendment that is 233523. You see that at the top.
Okay, 523. Okay. All right. So that's
Mhm.
what I'm looking at. So I had taken it to committee today and to the floor because I had some questions and I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know if I left it on the floor or in HDO. So I have my staff person running to HDO to see if I put it in a desk there. So I do have a few questions on the latest version, and it probably is, I guess, then the 311. So if we could just like hold it for a
Can
little
you
while.
repeat your question? We'll move it to the end of we'll move it to the end of
Okay.
our session today.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, so we're going to go on to the next bill. All right. And our next bill, 1015, Development Disability Services Eligibility for Recently Relocated Individuals, Rouse Act. And Chris will go over it, but I think we did take some amendments, and then there was also an additional amendment that was offered that we hadn't seen in Delegate Solomon. It was actually the department had asked us to take that amendment, and Delegate Solomon had not had time to opine, I think. So Chris, can you go over where we were?
So I have one amendment from Delegate Solomon. And so first, the bill specifies that certain individuals who receive home and community-based waiver services or similar services in another state must be eligible to receive such services from MDH. MDH must establish an expedited process to determine whether an individual is eligible to receive services. The determination must be completed within 30 days. If an individual is determined eligible, the individual must be placed in the crisis resolution category and given access to waiver services through the most appropriate reserve category as determined based on the services the person received in their previous state of residence. MDH must determine or may determine before an individual establishes residency in the state whether they're eligible to receive services, the appropriate service priority category, and whether they are eligible for crisis resolution services. The amendments from Delegate Solomon made technical changes and amends the bill to require MDH to make the expedited eligibility determinations, and it describes the determination processes.
Correct. And let me correct myself, and I see your hand, Delegate Kaufman. It wasn't that MDH had additional amendments. That piece had not been taken. And what we had said as a committee is we wanted additional time to actually review the bill with the amendments we voted out to decide if we felt like we understood whether it would require MDH to take someone and move them ahead of people who are already on the wait list. And my understanding is that what the bill as amended does is it would take someone under emergency situation who came out from out of state, and it would elevate them not above other emergent people, but above non-emergent people, because an emergency is an emergency. And if you're an emergency coming from out of state, or your emergency who's already been here, you're an emergency. And if you're on the wait list and you're not an emergency, you're still not an emergency. So that was my understanding. Let me see if Delegate Solomon or someone from his office is here.
He is in the waiting room, Madam Chair.
He's in the waiting room. Okay. Alicia, if you can take care of that, we'd appreciate that. And then in the meantime, well, we can wait a second. Thank you. Let's see. Yes, Delegate Solomon. Thank you. I was just recapping. Chris had just reread the bill that we had taken, the amendments where we had paused. There was a portion of the amendments that MDH had asked for that you had not taken. They had expressed concern that it would require them to bump someone who had not resided in Maryland above people on the waiting list. And I explained that that we wanted to all take a time to look at it. But my understanding was that it says that if you're an emergency, regardless of whether you've been residing here or you're now moving here, you're an emergency. So you may go above people who are not emergent, but it doesn't elevate you above someone else who's been residing and is emergent. Is that correct?
It's 100% correct, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so I'll let Megan speak and then I'll let Delegate Kaufman ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, but the department has nothing else to add at this point.
All right, thank you. Delegate Kaufman.
Yes, I understand that time is of the essence, but to make my decision as to whether or not to vote for the department's amendment, I could really use just for 1 minute. If you could give the ARC of Maryland 1 minute, I would be grateful because I'm interested in their
But
perspective.
if they're here, and just to the point, there is no amendment. The issue was whether the amendment that Delegate Solomon had not taken, he took most of the amendments that had been offered, whether we wanted to take that as the subcommittee, even though he had rejected it. Okay.
I would just appreciate
So
the
who's here
perspective.
from the ARC?
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Andy Culp from the
Hey,
ARC.
Andy, how are you?
Hi, good. So I just wanted to reiterate what the delegate said, that this doesn't
Yep.
bump people above other
Madam Chair,
Marylanders.
it's very tight.
I'm sorry, can I?
You keep going. Yes, please.
Okay, this doesn't bump people above other Marylanders. It does recognize the emergent situation that they're in, and that they have lost a primary caregiver, and coming into Maryland, they're homeless. And so those are two criteria that a person has to meet, one of a few criteria to be designated as crisis resolution, and here they would be meeting both. So it's just making sure that we properly place them on the waiting list in crisis resolution, and has been made very narrow. So people who are in crisis, this is going to help them, and it humanely addresses an important issue for a very small number of people who would otherwise be at risk of institutionalization.
And so would it be fair to say that in essence, what we're doing is saying that we don't require establishment of residency before we recognize an emergency situation? Like, you don't have to be here for 6 months. It's like when you show up in the ER, we don't say, hey, you're from Virginia, so we're not going to prioritize you against, the person with a stub toe when you're having a heart attack.
Correct. And Delegate Solomon, you might want to expand on it. Okay.
Yeah, he's already spoken. Delegate Kaufman, is that adequate for you? Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No,
Yes,
thank
it's
you.
adequate for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we have the amendments that we've taken. There was a question of whether we wanted to, does anyone want to offer an additional amendment? Any one of the members want to offer additional amendment? And if not, okay, I don't see any hands. Any other questions? All right, Chris, did we move and vote on the bill as amended?
No.
Okay, can someone move the bill as amendment, which is essentially the sponsor's amendments?
Move the bill.
Is there a second? I will second. I'm seconding.
I can second.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the
We're all a
bill,
little tired.
all in favor of the bill as amended, please indicate by raising your actual or your virtual hand.
Aye.
Okay, I see Kaufman, I see Martinez, I see Hill, I see Warman, I see Hutchinson, I see Riley, and I don't see, okay, hands down. Is there anyone who's opposed to the bill as amended? Okay, Delegate Austin, are you neutral, or are you voting against or for? I couldn't tell.
4, the buttons aren't working.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair, I didn't see your hand. Are you for? Okay, all right. So that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you for the work. Okay, next we're going to go on to 1022 PFAS chemicals. This is Delegate Ruth's bill. Chris, can you summarize where we are with the amendments, and then we'll hear from Delegate Ruth. I know she's been working very hard, and there have been a number of amendments. Some she's taken and some she has not. And I know Delegate Riley's been working with her as well. Delegate Kaufman, you and I need to both put our hands down.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
So the bill expands product bans for specified consumer products that contain intentionally added PFAS chemicals. The bans are phased, as originally drafted, they were phased in. The bill requires manufacturers to register their products. In the original draft, I'm just going to go to the amendments. The amendments make technical changes. They add and alter definitions, exempt certain aerosol propellants, medical devices, and drugs, consolidates the bans into one, and establishes the compliance date in 2029. It removes registration requirement provisions. It requires the Department of Environment to report on a possible exemption. Those were the first set of amendments. We now have a second set of amendments that change the definitions around textiles and textile articles.
Okay, and Delegate Ruth, and just to be clear, we took no amendments up on this bill. And Delegate Ruth has been working. Delegate Ruth, can you just tell us where we are and if there are additional amendments or if that summary is all we have?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee for the opportunity here. And I also want to thank Delegate Riley for sending that amendment. It's one that I think got missed in trying to work everything in. It's a good amendment. We support it, and I did have it drafted and sent it to council. That's the second one that he mentioned. We had previously accepted quite a few amendments from opponents, including a couple big ones, removing the registration requirement, which was a big one that a lot of people were concerned about, 6-1606. We removed paint from the bill. We removed, exempted the EPA SNAP program, which was one of the concerns. We exempted medical devices and medicines governed by the FDA. All of those that council went through. And I just want to mention a couple of things. First of all, there was some confusion about amendments going out, that people contacted me thinking that things had changed that we agreed on. I think that confusion was that people were seeing the separate reprint with Delegate Riley's amendment and thinking that other things had been removed. And so I tried to clarify to everybody, and I want to make clear there are two separate reprints, two separate amendments that both have to be applied, and everything we agreed on is still in the original amendment. I believe council can apply both of those amendments. There are a few things that we have not put in the bill that are, I think, minor things. One of them is the definition of intentionally added. There's some disagreement about that. We do have a definition of intentionally added. Some of the ones that were sent to me seem substantially the same as what we have, but worded differently. That's not a hill that we want to die on, I don't think. The Assistant Secretary is here, and he might be able to address that. The one area that we are in strong disagreement with is a fluoropolymer exemption. We do oppose any fluoropolymer exemption. The science, first of all, the science is not as clear as the opponents would make it out to be, that they claim that fluoropolymers are perfectly safe. But also, I want to point out that the manufacturing of fluoropolymers is still a big issue. And fluoropolymers are manufactured in Cecil County by W.L. Gore, who is currently being sued by the Attorney General and by numerous private individuals for contaminating Cecil County area with the discharge from their manufacturing. So with that, I thank you very much. And I don't know if you want the Assistant Secretary to address the intentionally added question.
Mr. Secretary, that's okay. Let's see where we are on this. So from the sponsor standpoint, there's a sponsor amendment and there's a Riley amendment. And the sponsor amendment includes the things and the concessions that you negotiated with some of the opposition, correct? Okay. And I know we had gotten a email from Mr. Manis, who was concerned that it had come out, but that is still part of your original amendment, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Then we got an email from Ms. Guerrero Julia asking for what you just spoke about to come out. And certainly members can raise any, but you've spoken that you would prefer that we not take that up, but that will be up to the members. So I would like to see if there are any questions about any of the amendments, but I'd like you all, can we move first the sponsor's amendment and then have for discussion? Madam Chair, did you want to go in a different direction?
No, I just had questions, so.
Okay. Can I get a motion on the sponsor's amendment, which is negotiated with some of the opposition?
Move the amendment.
Second.
All right. Any discussion or questions about that one? Okay. Tell us what that one does in summary, Chris, if you can. So we know what we're voting on.
So that one made technical changes, added and altered definitions. It exempts certain aerosol propellants, medical devices, and drugs. It consolidated the multiple bans into one, established one compliance date in 2029, removed registration requirement provisions, and required the Department of Energy to report on a possible exemption.
And if I can just clarify, that compliance dates was later than some of the other compliance. So it pushes it out.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Any other questions about that amendment? Delegate Riley. Unmute yourself. We're going to take up
I
your
just want to
amendment
be
next.
very, very
We're going to
clear.
take up your amendment next.
Yeah, I know, but I just want to make sure. I think the first part was in the sponsor's amendment. I just want to make clear. So the requirement part, registration requirement, that was the 6/16/06.
That is taken out.
Okay, thank you.
That's been removed.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. All in favor of the sponsor's amendment, please indicate by raising whatever hand is available.
Aye.
Okay. All right. So I've got Kaufman, Riley, Warman, Bagnall, Martinez. Okay. Any opposed? And Hill. Any opposed? Let me take my hand down. Okay. Delegate Austin, are you neutral or you're not voting on this amendment? Okay. Tied up. All right. So we've got one no vote and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes for. So the amendment, Delegate Hutchinson, were you voting or weighing in on that amendment?
Yeah, I was up. I just.
You were up. Okay, thank you. All right. So that's 7 and 1 no vote. All right. Now, can we hear about what Delegate Riley's amendment does?
Delegate Riley, sorry, I lost my place.
It's okay.
Oh, Delegate Riley's amendment just changes definitions around textiles and textile articles. I can read what it's.
No, Delegate Riley, what is your amendment to?
That's it.
What does it change
Okay.
in textiles? What is the purpose of the amendment?
Okay, the purpose of the amendment, the sponsor did have some, did actually remove some of the textile, but it wasn't the complete language from the California where it was the textile article. So what my amendment did was put that language in the bill.
Okay, so pre-existing in another state, in the state of California. All right.
And then there was another little sentence. So in the rewrite from 319, she added it. It's on, if everybody wants to see it, it's on page 8 is where it's added. And then also on page, I believe it's 12 is a little sentence as well.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion on Delegate Riley's amendment?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of Delegate Riley's amendment, please indicate by raising your hand or speaking up.
Aye.
All right, Delegate Kaufman, Delegate Riley, Delegate Bagnall, Delegate Warman, Delegate Hutchinson, Delegate Martinez, Delegate Hill, Delegate Austin. Okay. All right. Hands down. So there's no one to oppose because everyone was for. Okay. Does anyone want to offer any additional amendments? We've been written as their additional amendment. Delegate Martinez, you're leaning in.
Yeah, move the bill as amended.
Move the bill as amended. Second. All in favor? Of
No,
Delegate
Madam
Bagnall?
Chair.
Yes,
Madam
Delegate
Chair,
Bagnall.
I've got my
Yes.
hand up.
You got your hand up, sorry.
Because we're not ready to move this bill because we don't know. I need to ask if the amendments address the fiscal note or how we know or what we know about the fiscal impact of the amendments.
Thank you for that question. Okay.
I was like, we're too close to crossover not to know the answers.
All right. Delegate Ruth, talk to us. Or maybe you can speak to the
Chair,
secretary. The
I was
secretary
going to
is
say,
here.
yes, can the
Okay.
Assistant Secretary address that?
Okay.
Hi, members of the committee. Thank you for having me. Zach Schaefer, Assistant Secretary at MDE. We do believe that the amendment, particularly removing 1606, reduces the fiscal note quite substantially. The fiscal note would be a total of three, two to implement the most of the provisions that we're discussing here. There is technically, we believe, a fiscal impact that we would also need an administrative specialist to administer the fund that the bill creates if the fund were to be capitalized. It's a little bit of a gray area. Christopher and I were discussing it a little bit, but to the extent that the fund is not funded, there would not be a need for a person to perform that work. We would not hire someone to do that work, but were the fund to eventually be capitalized, we would need capacity to administer it. However, the bill would also provide that the funds in that special fund would be able to would be available to implement the bill, which would include the administration of the fund. So it would likely be no net impact, but it would technically be an expense of the department.
Well, you took us all around that one. Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Delegate Hutchinson.
I'm not sure I'm clear.
I think what you said is we can do it. It might cost something later, but we'll have the funds to do it. Is that correct?
There would be a near-term fiscal impact of 2 staff needed and the cost to employ those staff.
But that's not, so that's $200,000 immediately?
I need to pull it.
So you need new staff, is what you're saying?
We would need new staff. Yeah.
So we would have to go to appropriations because this
Yes.
is outside of our thing. So it lowered it.
It lowered it, but it does not eliminate it.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Chair, any other questions on that?
That's what I need to know because I don't want to vote this bill until we know that we've got the appropriation. So thank you.
Okay. So can we continue on, or you prefer that we can vote it and not move it until we have that clarified, if you'd like?
I think we should have the discussion because we haven't had this bill in our jurisdiction very long, and we have just had the amendment. So I think this is for the clarity of the subcommittee and for us to be able to move when we are certain.
Thank you. Delegate Hutchinson, then Alston. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do think that we have to have more discussion on this because I still have a number of questions. One is that I brought up at the previous meeting we had, and that was around cleaning products that are identified as pesticides. So maybe Delegate Ruth, is there a FIFRA exemption in the bill?
There is not a FIFRA exemption. There is an exemption that exempts any products that are regulated by the federal government in a way that preempts state authority.
So what does that mean in terms of Delegate Hutchinson's question about pesticides?
Assistant Secretary Schaefer might be best able to answer that.
Mr. Secretary?
I apologize. To be honest, I am not sure.
Okay. I see non-members' hands up. And if you can answer that question, please keep your hand up. But if you can't answer the question, I don't want to call you while we're in the middle of asking questions. All right. Okay. So we don't have an answer for that, but we can certainly, Delegate, did you want to ask something else, Delegate Hutchinson?
Well, I mean, I have been, there's been other amendments that have been shared with me that want to be offered, and I just don't know where we are right now in terms of taking in additional offers of amendments. So that's why I just think that we're still working hard to get a bill done here, but I'm not ready to move this to a vote tonight.
Okay, that sounds good. Delegate Austin.
Thank you. So I received an email from Mr. Manis with several concerns and questions, and I'm just wondering, have those concerns been addressed, Mr. Manis, if you could answer that?
Thank you, Delegate and Madam Chairman. Some of them have, but they all haven't. And there's strong concerns over some of the things that would be prohibited in Maryland with this. such as coffee makers and things of that nature. The cookware issue, the governor of California just in November of last year issued a veto letter because of all the products that all of a sudden would be banned and the impact that it would have on the constituency there. So we still have, I want to thank Delegate Ruth.
Because I know you all worked a lot. So Mr. Manis, let me ask, my understanding was that the cookware was not for, it was not for pots and pans. Delegate, okay. It was not for pots and pans that are actually used for cooking. Can you clarify that? That's different from what the California did, that somehow it is not exactly what California did because of that issue. Is that not correct?
I'm with a cookware company if you'd like me to answer, but I'm just.
Yeah, I mean,
who's the company?
Who's the cookware company on the line?
Said he was with the Tupperware company, I think.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So the cookware definition is anything that prepares, dispenses, or stores food. So that's everything in a kitchen besides a dishwasher. So it banned coffee makers. We make coffee makers. They're in every home and coffee shop around the company. That's one example. It would also, the pans that we make that are nonstick are coated with the same thing as a pacemaker. So the amendments exclude medical devices, but we literally coat our pans at a supplier on the first floor. On the second floor, they're coating catheters and stents. It is 100% 60 years of knowledge and safe.
So let me ask this question. Let me interrupt. So if the ban went in, you don't have a substitute for that? That's not a PFAS or a PFAS? So we would have to use the things before PFAS was invented 40 years ago, which is that what you're saying?
Yes. So if anyone can Google a McDonald's coffee maker exploding, and they can see the results, the fluoropolymers that are used. And for example, in the housing of a coffee maker, there's flame retardant, that's PTFE, that prevents it from catching on fire. There's also valves that are durable that prevent the high steam from coming on that touches food. Those would not be durable, and they would cause problems.
That's helpful. Okay, so I'm going to, Delegate Ruth, and we'll back to Delegate Austin. Delegate Ruth.
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, it is absolutely not true that we are banning coffee makers. We've added an amendment that says for food contact only, and we've also exempted internal components. So the only parts of a coffee maker that would not be able to have PFAS would be those parts that contact the actual coffee. And I really don't think that we want PFAS. I don't want PFAS in my coffee. Second of all, he said it would be banned immediately. It would not be banned immediately. We have 3 years. The cookware would not be banned until 2029. So they have 3 years to develop new products. Plus, other states have already been working on these bans for several years. So the manufacturers hopefully have been working on things. Second, there are already alternatives to the PFAS coatings that are in cookware. I have multiple pans in my kitchen that do not have intentionally added PFAS, including cast iron, which still works. It's not my grandmother's cast iron pan.
Delegate Ruth, we don't want to relitigate the whole thing.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I understand.
Okay.
It's complicated, and I'm trying to address the concerns.
Thank you. Delegate Austin, you have more questions? Okay, Delegate Martinez.
Question, because you interrupted it. Wait a minute, I'm still
Oh, I'm sorry.
talking.
Okay,
You're
I'm
being
sorry. I
very
think we
rude.
got a
I was
lag.
asking him a question. You interrupted him while he was answering.
I did.
And you didn't let him finish. So I would like him to finish answering my question, because at this point, I'm not comfortable. I am not comfortable with this process. You need to let people finish talking, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Austin,
Mr. Cannis.
I will take
Mr.
that.
Manis, can you please
I will take that under advisement. Now, you said you have another question for Mr. Manis?
He didn't finish answering the first question.
Okay.
Because you interrupted him. What I would like to know is,
re-ask your question. What part he didn't finish answering?
What impact will this have on your clients, Mr. Manis, and which of your concerns have still not been addressed?
Thank you, Delegate. And it would continue to have impact. And I think you can tell from the conversations from the gentleman with cookware and also Delegate Ruth. We're still unsure as of this morning, and Delegate Ruth was kind enough to respond to my email, which I think I was working off the wrong version. So there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of states that have passed bills. We are trying to get it in a format with those states that have passed bills, because when you get down to the definitions, that's where the confusion lies. So it's very hard for us. And I sent an email earlier today that addressed our concerns. The majority of them still are concerning to us, but until we see actual language, so we can see, because it's in the details, right? So the definitions matter in this very, very much so. So I appreciate the question. Sorry, I can't be more clarifying, but that's the position where we are now. And if we were to model after instead of picking one state, this state, that state, this state, there is language, as MDE made a presentation to the committee earlier this year with a chart that showed various states, and Maryland, I think, had 3 out of the 8 categories. I think we could get to all 8 categories, but with proper definitions. So thank you for the question, Delegate.
Delegate Austin, you have additional questions for?
Thank you, sir.
Questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Manis, I need to be clear. When you say, because I know you had gone through the same list with the sponsor that you gave us, and some of the things, as I understand it, were taken and some weren't. You said you're trying to align it with other states, but as you point out, so I'm not clear on what other states, because the states aren't all the same, right?
Correct.
Okay, so how are you picking what state? Even if we were aligned with another state, it would still be not correct. So we've been trying to align with California, correct?
Madam Chair, if we're going to get into the technical specifics, there is a gentleman that testified before the committee, Robert Simon, who's on, that works with FDA on a lot of these issues, testified before your committee, and he would be more equipped to answer if we're going to get into the technical questions.
Then let's,
and I know you don't want to relitigate.
Right, then let's not.
I'm not prepared.
And we can take it offline, or we can have another, because we still have to get back to a bill. And we have one more. So let me get Delegate Martinez and Delegate Hutchinson. Delegate Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so I'm clear on process of where we are, because it's been a lot. There was a motion to move the bill as amended. It was seconded. And then we went into this whole frenzy around fiscal note. I just want to know where we're at with the bill and whether or not we need.
So where we're at right now, we're finishing the discussion, meaning questions for the members. And then, I think what I'll be doing is holding the bill for further discussion. And so but I want to get your questions out so that the folks have an opportunity to know what the questions are. So I'll be holding the bill. We're not going to vote this bill tonight. Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if you want to proceed with this. I was actually going to ask for Rob Simon to have 1 minute to say some things that I know that he wanted to address with us, if appropriate.
Okay. That's your question. Go ahead, Mr. Simons, 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. I testified at the committee level. Thank you, Delegate Ruth, for all your efforts to address some of these issues. I would just reiterate what Nick had said. A lot of progress here. We're trying to align so that the language in this bill aligns with state actions across, so that we don't have a patchwork of conflicting laws. And so that's, again, a lot of progress, but see some opportunities to further refine a few definitions that would really help with that. Appreciate that, and happy to work offline.
Mr. Simon, I'm still asking the same question that I asked Mr. Manis, and he said you might be able to answer. There are lots of different states, so I'm not clear what state, when you said what state are you trying to bring us into alignment with? And is it not true that even if we come into alignment, there's still going to be a patchwork of states?
There won't be if we align with the states that have acted. So to your point, there are states that have regulated this. We want to align with those states that have regulated, so that we don't have, I can sell in California, but I can't sell in Maryland, or I can sell in New Jersey, but I can't sell in Maryland. There's definitely going to be states that haven't acted on this, but Maryland's a leader here. And that's the opportunity to align the statute with those other provisions. And again, we're really close. I think there's just some key definitions that would make it a big difference in certain applications. And again, appreciate Delegate Ruth's efforts to work with stakeholders on this.
Okay, I'm going to ask the chair and Delegate Riley, and then I think we're going to be done, Delegate Ruth. Okay?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask a question, if that would be okay.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify what is the committee's position on, do we need to have 100% alignment, or, you know, because we've made good faith efforts, and so how much do we need to be aligned before the committee, you know, can consider this?
I don't really think I have an answer for that. Okay? But there's still a lot of conversation. Madam Chair, may I take Riley, or would you like to go?
I was going to defer to Riley.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Riley?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that may help in some of this, because I'm aware of a couple of the other amendments that, you know, that some of the folks on the call would like. And it may have been my error, I don't know, but it looks like the California definition, I may have missed a bullet at the end, which would have been, I guess, number 7. And it talks about, you know, sodium shades and other agricultural fabric structures. And I don't know if Delegate Ruth would be, you know, if I could submit that to her, if she would.
She's giving a thumbs up. She's good with that one.
Okay.
So it sounds like maybe we can have you and Delegate Ruth continue to work, and just, you know, over the weekend, we'll see where you are on Monday. And I know, as I said, Mr. Manis has sent stuff. I think Mr. Kress has sent stuff. I think Ms. Garagiola had sent some stuff for their clients. Chris, you wanted to say something, and then we'll go with Delegate Bagnall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question for the Assistant Secretary, if he's still available, about the fiscal impact.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm waiting still on some numbers for the fiscal impact now that we have amendments, but I really want to know, because the original fiscal note talked about 6 people being hired, and that was a big portion of it. So are those 6 people still needed to be hired, even with the amendments?
Thank you for the question, Chris. No, that number was driven by pieces of this that have been taken out of the bill through these amendments. So we'll get you a revised fiscal note.
How many people now?
Now it's 2 to 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make some comments, because we do know that it is Friday of crossover week, and we know that the bill sponsor has been working diligently, and I think there is an appetite from the committee to do something, but also to get this right. To the sponsor's question, it really there is no, like, you know, bright line of alignment. You know, it really is, this is a big bill. It's doing a lot of things. And, you know, we've got to make sure we understand what it's doing. Do we know if it's moving in the Senate? Because the reality is that we don't have to let perfect be the enemy of good, because I know that you have been amending it in the Senate as well. We only have to have one side that crosses to the other. It would be great if the Senate would move it, because I know that that we have a very diligent team here that wants to get this right. But I also will mention that ENT is second on this bill. I don't believe that it is duly assigned in the Senate. I believe it's just in EEE. So I'm going to ask that I know that the I won't even say opponents, just various stakeholders on the bill said that they have some outstanding concerns and proposed amendments. I'm going to ask that we have those by tomorrow, because I'm not sure with the fiscal note that if we don't have it by tomorrow, that we can get it approved by appropriations, that we can get it voted by Environment and Transportation, and that we can get it across the street by Monday. That's a lot of work. between now and then, but we've cleared the decks on a lot of things. So so I'm going to make that ask that we also to the best of our abilities spur the Senate to move, and also that we have a revised fiscal note and any outstanding concerns addressed by tomorrow, so that we can reconvene and know what the work product looks like. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Delegate Martinez, and then Mr. Univar, I've seen your hand. If some additional information, we'll give you 30 seconds, okay? Mr. Martinez,
Thank you,
Delegate
Madam Chair.
Martinez.
Do I need to withdraw my motion to move the bill since we're holding it?
I think it would be helpful.
Process.
Yeah. if
Okay,
you don't
well,
mind.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Univar, 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Respectfully, I wanted to make a differentiation between fluoropolymers and basically the bad PFAS. I know we didn't want to discuss it right now, but it's
We don't want to
important.
discuss it right now.
Okay. It's just a key issue that it's not an issue whether it's perfect or not. It's just wrong. That's what I wanted to express here.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. And appreciate your being here, all of you. Thank you. I know you're here because it matters. All right. Thank you. Let's go on to House Bill 1048. This is Delegate Shetty, sodium and added sugar warnings. And Chris, just get us up to date where we were. We had the amendment from Delegate Shetty. We had an amendment from the Restaurant Association that she had not received. Can you remind us of whether we had voted her amendments and we were waiting, or we had held all the amendments? What our status is?
We held everything. We still have Delegate Shetty's amendment, and that's all we still have.
Okay. And I know that Mr. Thompson had offered an amendment, and he and Delegate Shetty went back and forth. And I know that in fact, the vice chair was working with them. And I thought didn't we have something through those discussions? Do we have something for the committee to consider today? Chris?
Oh.
Delegate Shetty.
Thank you.
thank
Yes,
you.
I shared with Madam Vice Chair like a hand drafted, added in all of the language of from the Restaurant Association into the reprint of the sponsor bill with sponsor amendment. So it
was an
basically was
earlier
the
date.
hybrid version.
Right. And it was an earlier date that you hand wrote it on, correct? That's why, right. I saw it, right. It was
Yes, I
redlined.
took all of the language that the restaurants asked for, including changing the name, narrowing the scope of the restaurants that this would apply to, changing the civil penalty, lowering that, and adding the disclaimer language exactly as they had asked. The only thing that I changed is I didn't strike the whole bill, which is what they suggested. And the second thing I changed was as part of the compliance language, Mr. Thompson had noted in the last subcommittee that to comply, the restaurants could have the QR code, but if somebody needed a PDF copy and wouldn't be able to access it, then they would have on hand a PDF or some form of printed copy of the nutritional guidelines. The language that he had submitted had a drafting error that didn't reflect what he had presented. And so I corrected that language to note that it was to comply, they would have to have both of those things. And then everything else was the exact same as he had presented, again, minus the strike the whole bill language.
Okay. All right. So you are fine with that write-up that you gave to the vice chair?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Where are you with the write-up that was given to the vice chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And we had sort of a different understanding of what happened in the subcommittee yesterday. I thought I recalled that the subcommittee had approved moving forward with both sets of amendments, and then there was a conflict, and we were asked to try to figure out how to handle that conflict. I think the impasse here at this point is that our amendments had an alternative approach, which provided full nutrition information via QR code or online, or any other digital format, or in writing upon request. And Delegate Shetty's amendment wanted to retain the warning icons on the menu, which we were opposed to. And so I thought we were at the point where we were trying to figure out if there was a way to
So where are we
combine both
now?
sets of amendments.
Your summary is correct,
Okay,
right? And
okay.
so they were actually in conflict because it struck her. It wasn't an additional amendment to do the QR code.
That is
And
correct.
it was not an alternative to do a QR code. It was strike everything that had been there. So
Exactly.
where are we now?
And
from
I
your
thought,
standpoint?
well, and that's the clarifying question I wanted from council, because I thought that the subcommittee had passed the sponsors' amendments
We can't.
yesterday, and ours were 6-1 was the
No,
vote.
no,
So
no.
I was just
It
trying to
doesn't
figure
go
out.
that. We're
Okay.
going that vote is.
So we're going back then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so in that case, I think we are still at an impasse, because our amendment approach was to strike the requirement for the warning icons and instead provide the full nutritional information. That
Okay.
was the approach of our amendments that we were
And
offering.
you've looked at what Delegate Shetty has, and because it does both, and it's not an option to do one or the other, you are still in opposition.
That is
Delegate Hutchinson, thank you. Delegate Hutchinson.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm glad that just went through there, because we did have conflicting amendments, so that got clarified. I actually do have a question. Maybe it would be for Delegate Shetty, and we had a nice conversation yesterday about chain hospitals, chain restaurants, and we got talking about like a McDonald's, and so McDonald's is a huge corporation, but they're independently owned. So what if an owner-operator owned only 17 McDonald's, and the next owner-operator here in the region owned only 19? Are they then exempt from this because they only own 17 and 19
This
Uh-huh.
is thank you, Delegate, so much for the question. I think it's a really good one. No, they would not be exempt, just as they are not exempt under federal law from having the full nutritional information on their website. And so the amendment language that we added into the definition of chain restaurant essentially aligns with the chain restaurants that already have this information, including McDonald's. And I will note, with McDonald's as a specific example, in New York City, where the McDonald's are also franchise owned, and New York City has this bill or this law in place, those McDonald's already have menu boards that include a warning sign. And so it has not been like a cause for the restaurants to go under or anything. They just complied with the law. And in fact, I believe, and one of the advocates actually had a family member visiting. She's laughing now. She had a family member visiting a McDonald's just yesterday, I think, and sent me a picture from their menu board. It's, the warning signs are there, or the disclaimers, I guess, if you want to change the language of the bill per the Restaurant Association amendment language that I incorporated into mine. The customer disclosure is there, and it is, and just it seems to have been workable from a restaurant perspective there.
Okay, thank you. So folks, I think what we have here, members, is a policy decision. It's a policy decision. It's your policy decision. And the policy decision, Delegate Shetty has said, fine, you want to do the QR to give more information. That's great, but you still put a little symbol if you own more than 20 or more restaurants. Put a symbol up there so people will know when they glance that this is what it does. Mr. Thompson's policy option is to say, if you want to know, we'll make it available, but you've got to look for it. It's sort of the difference between an opt-in and an opt-out. So Delegate Shetty is saying you have to opt out by not looking or paying attention to what the symbol means. And Mr. Thompson is saying you've got to opt in if you want to know. We'll have it for you, but you got to ask for it.
Madam Chair, could I just clarify, please?
Sure.
We are proposing that there is a disclosure on the menu that notifies customers that some menu items may contain high sodium or high sugars. And if you want full nutrition information, we will make that available in a format that is a QR code online or in written format that is available upon request. And so we are sharing more comprehensive information rather than just the sodium or sugar information.
Thank you
And
for
I
that
think
clarification. I
sure.
think,
Thank you, Matt.
and that's
Thank
an
you.
important clarification. Thank you.
Just because the hour is late, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the Shetty amendments.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're going to call for the vote. All in favor of the Shetty Amendment signify by saying aye, raising your virtual hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we've got Bagnall, Werman, Austin, Martinez, Kaufman, and Hill. Okay, hands down. All right, all opposed, raise your hand or signify by saying aye. I've got Hutchinson and I've got Riley. All right, and there are no abstentions, so we move with the Shetty Amendment. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of the bill as amended signify by raising some hand or another. And Delegate Bagnall, Delegate Warren, Delegate Kaufman, Delegate Austin, Delegate Martinez, Delegate Hill. All right, it passes. Thank you all very much, and thank you for the work. Mr. Thompson, I want to be clear. You always work with us. We appreciate that.
And I appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate you, Madam Chair, and Delegate Shetty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate Shetty, for the work and the willingness to do the work. All
Thank
right.
you so much, Subcommittee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we are now going to go on to cosmetic. This is Delegate Austin's bill, enforcement and penalties for prohibited ingredients. Chris, just tell us where we were at the end of the last meeting and what we're trying to do here. Give us a summary.
So I have amendment from Delegate Austin. Would you like me to briefly explain what the bill does so I could explain the amendments?
Whatever what you think will get us there. And again, just remind us if we took any amendments or everything was discussed conceptually at the last meeting.
Okay. So the bill specifies that in addition to existing civil and criminal penalties, a person who violates the prohibition on knowingly manufacturing, selling, delivering, holding, or offering for sale in the state a cosmetic product that contains any of the listed intentionally added ingredients is liable for civil damages. In any action brought to enforce the bill, a court may award reasonable attorney's fees. This is as it was originally drafted. MDH may investigate any complaint alleging a person has violated the prohibition. On receipt of the complaint, a representative from the Department of Health at a reasonable time may enter and inspect the premises of the person to determine compliance. Person may not refuse to grant access to a representative or interfere with an inspection. An investigation may include sampling of the product. Takes effect July 1st.
All right, thank you. And what does the sponsor amendments do? Then we'll ask Delegate Austin to comment.
Amendment number 1 makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 makes a violator subject to the Maryland Consumer Protection Act as led to the list of prohibited ingredients, includes a statute of limitations in the bill. It clarifies damages awarded to a prevailing plaintiff, so it's now not just reasonable attorney's fees, it's a few other damages. And it establishes the harmful hair and chemical restitution fund under the department. It removes grant qualification language and requires MDH to adopt regulations to administer the fund.
Okay.
I believe that we had amendments, but they needed to be, the amendments needed to be amended. So these are the amendments that we have today.
Okay, Delegate Austin, anything that you want to tell us about that?
I think the amendments make it better. The amendments, we had to do clarifying work because we originally put the Office of the Attorney General as the administrator of the fund. That was definitely not the intention. It is now the Department of Health, which is where it should be. They administer the cigarette restitution fund as well as the opioid restitution fund. These funds are there to help people who have been damaged by these products. And we need to do the same thing for people who are being damaged by these harmful hair care chemicals. And with that, I move the amendments.
All right.
Second.
There's a second. And I think one of the reasons we paused was because MDH had not had a chance since they were drawn in. Megan Lynch, do you want to tell us? You had not had a chance to look at this new role. What did you want to tell us?
That's correct, Madam Chair, and I certainly do appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I got the chance to speak briefly with the delegate staff. And I think from the department's stance, we are certainly in spirit with all of these pieces, right? The department was tagged in the bill initially, and we were happy to absorb it with existing resources. I know the bill is in a different posture in the Senate, so I think we're open to continuing conversations, but I do think that we would really need to lean on some sort of research entity, right? And figuring out how we would adjudicate these claims. The department works with the Cigarette Restitution Fund in particular, and I think maybe if we lean on statute there as to the specificity that provides to the department kind of how we use that fund and how we move forward, I think that would certainly be appreciated. And just kind of, just giving the guardrails, right, of the fund.
Let me interrupt. So I'm sorry, are you asking that we do an additional language borrowing from the cigarette restitution part of the statute? What are you?
No. Sorry, Madam Chair. I think at the late hour, I'm struggling to be comprehensible here. So my apologies. I think in just thinking about the other fund that the department does administer, which is the Cigarette Restitution Fund, under that part of statute, we find a lot more guardrails about how the department administers that fund in particular. And I know that there's also the Senate bill, and I think my request certainly of the subcommittee and as we move forward in conversations with the bill sponsors both in the House and the Senate is to get more clarity in statute about what this would look like for the department, because I think in reading it we have a lot of confusion about what this looks like once the fund actually comes in, what it looks like to administer it.
So you're asking for us to hold them. You don't want us to move forward, is what you're saying. And is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say that I'm saying one thing or the other. I'm simply telling you my read of the bill.
Okay. So we have some questions. Delegate Austin, just update us. Is it moving in the Senate? Just so we have context. Please.
The Senate passed it with the Office of the Attorney General administering the fund. So they passed it clean. So I think that we need to pass it the way we have it, and we will have time to address her questions in conference.
Very good. Thank you, Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It just remind me, and I know there's parts of this bill that are good in terms of the harm it does, but there's parts of it, the punitive damages. Delegate Austin, just bring me up to speed where we are with the punitive damages.
Yep, it's they can get triple damages and attorney fees. So 3 times the actual damages that the person may have incurred. Some of these products are very inexpensive. And so if you're paying like $5 for a pack of hair, your triple damages would be $15. And then your medicals and other things. But the punitive damages are meant to punish the wrongdoer because they've knowingly and intentionally violated these laws.
Thank you. You good?
And there was one other thing. I believe Delegate Riley had questions about the education piece. I did have an opportunity to speak with Ms. Locklear, and they have been educating their clients for the better part of 2 years since the act passed. They had almost 3 years to get their act together and get these products off of the shelves. So it's not that they have not known. They send it out regularly and consistently to their members, letting them know about the banned products. And I also have a list for anyone that's interested where you can go on websites and actually find the harmful chemicals that are in these products. And I just don't think consumers should have to do that every time they go shopping.
All right, thank you. Okay, Delegate Hutchinson, was that all of your questions?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, Delegate Martinez.
Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to make sure we're moving forward with the bill.
Okay, so it's been, the amendments have been moved and seconded. questions have been answered. All in favor of the amendments, indicate by raising a hand or saying aye.
Aye.
All right, I see Bagnall, Worman, no, Riley's not voting. Kaufman said yes. Martinez is a yes. Hill is a yes. And Hutchinson, Austin's a yes. Okay, all opposed, indicate by raising your hands or saying that's Riley is opposed. Okay, all abstaining? And Hutchinson is abstaining. Okay, can I get a motion on the bill as amended?
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Second.
We'll move the bill. Sounds like we got some work to do with the other bill. Okay. All in favor of the bill as amended, indicate by saying yes or raising a hand.
Aye.
Well, ayes are yes. Okay, so Kaufman, Austin, Werman, Bagnall, Hill, and Martinez, all opposed to moving the bill, indicate by raising your hand or saying aye. Okay, no one's opposed. All who are abstaining from moving the bill indicate by raising. So Hutchinson and Riley are abstained. Thank you very much. Now let's go back to, I do want to go back to Delegate Darkudian's bill. Delegate Warman, you kind of held it till the end. I
Yeah.
held it to the end. Where are we now?
Thank you so much for that time, for me to catch up. In the interest of time, I'll just move the bill as previously amended by the subcommittee. Thank you so much.
Second.
I have a question.
Okay,
Point of
question,
order.
Delegate Austin.
So first, I have a point of order. I understand that we want to move this bill, but I think that in our rush to move this bill, we are ignoring some very significant legal issues. Number one, there are existing court orders that are already out there in place that require these people to have approval authority over treatment plans. That is giving them the authority to do and be involved in the treatment. And by doing this, are we invalidating all of those orders? We are ignoring that. And two, and probably more importantly, with my point of order, there was a motion on the amendments that was seconded, and then the bill was held. You can't then just do a substitute motion on someone else's motion. That is not proper order. So we are out of order right now with trying to move this bill in this manner because there was a motion and a second on the amendments.
Yeah, that's what she did. We just said we were on the Ask Me amendments.
Oh, she said no, that's not what Delegate Warman just
She said she wanted to move the amendments. So we're
Madam
talking about
Chair?
the ask. Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I did hear Delegate Warman say move the bill as previously
Okay.
amended by the subcommittee.
Then thank you
So
for the
I
correction.
do not think that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for the correction. I did lose track. Thank you. Okay, so Delegate Warman, we can't accept your motion because we did have an amendment. And so to Delegate Austin's point, Delegate Charkoudian, do you have an answer to that? If not, Christy, you have an answer to that.
I mean, I can give it a shot. And there may also be others who participate in the process that.
Is there someone else who can address it? If that's
Okay.
okay, Delegate
Sure
Charkoudian,
thing.
Mr. Verghese?
Yeah, so to confirm that the question is, would this invalidate previously signed conditional release orders? Is that correct, Delegate Alston?
I'm making a statement. There are previously signed conditional release orders wherein the C5 people are the forensic aftercare programs are being monitored and supervised by the members of ASME who have to make these treatment decisions in order to execute the court orders that have already been signed by a judge. It's a statement of fact. I didn't have a question. I've read the order.
When you
that's
did
what it
ask the
says.
question, would this invalidate them? What didn't you say
No,
that?
I was saying that we are going to be doing that. So if he wants to opine on it, that's fine.
Mr.
And Chair Hill, if you would like me to
Sure,
respond.
please.
Thank you. So the current conditional release orders are geared and written directly for the specific clinical needs of each individual. Sometimes there was language where it says that CFAP approval is needed before a change could be made, for example, in placement or the like. Other times that wasn't indicated on the orders. There is no blanket conditional release order that is there for conditional release. There is case law that indicates that all the terms are specific to the needs and the clinical presentation of that individual. So as to whether it would invalidate that or not, I believe that would ensure that the treatment decisions are made by the people who have the fiduciary duty to the individual. I believe that if CFAP is taking on a role of a treating relationship, the department should weigh in as to whether they're willing to accept that liability and responsibility as well of being in that type of fiduciary relationship.
Okay. All right. Chris, do you have anything to add? Okay.
Nothing to add.
Okay. All right. And Delegate Austin.
Thank you. In looking at this order, it is clear to me that they are not the treating practitioner, but they do have supervisory authority over what goes in these plans. And those decisions as to the treatment are things that they need to be able to continue to do looking at this order. For example, it says that the patient's name shall reside at a specific aftercare location and shall comply with all the rules and requirements of the setting. Any changes in the level of supervision must be recommended by the mental health care team in writing and approved by the MDH, the Community Forensic Aftercare Program, prior to any changes. And that is including their mental health. And there are multiple instances like that throughout this order. And so if you take away their ability to do this, we have a problem. And it is I'm sure it is a unintended consequence, but we need to be able to deal with this and put the correct policy out, not a rush policy that's going to come back later and bite us.
So let me ask this question, because as I read it, not questioning at all what you just said, that's not a clinical decision. That's in their role as the oversight. That is not a clinical decision. That's not a clinical decision. So again, that's not in the clinical role. But Mr. Verghese, you had your hand up for a while. That's Christopher. Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, real quick. I hate to interrupt. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Delegate Hutchins just came in. He had to switch locations, so he's in the waiting room. If you could add him, please.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, it's okay. Chris, please.
I just wanted to get Delegate Austin's take on a part of the bill, because I think that's the part that she's referencing when it is talking about not being able to make clinical decisions. But I wanted to know if what her opinion was on those parts of the order that talk about what you just talked about, whether or not they were covered under the may make recommendations regarding treatment.
Delegate Austin.
I do think it is, but there are other parts where it says that the very next paragraph, thereafter, any changes in clinicians or clinics must be approved in writing by MHT and sent to CFAF prior to the change, and CFAF must approve the change.
Right, those aren't clinical decisions.
Well, I think maybe we need to determine what clinical decisions are, because when I'm hearing from the advocates, they're telling me that all of these things absolutely are clinical decisions. So if you're saying based on your opinion, it's not, I would want to hear from Ms. Gilmore, since she represents the people who are saying they absolutely are, and it's going to impede their ability to do their job.
Okay, Ms. Gilmore, and then then Chair Bagno, and I didn't know if anyone from OPD or Delegate Charkoudian wants to weigh in.
Thank you, Chair Harrell. Yeah, I just wanted to, one of the amendments that we propose, we do try to clarify that, CFAP is not acting as the primary treatment provider. That's one of the amendments that we do try to add to clarify.
Okay. Madam Chair, did you want to? I've got Delegate Charkoudian and Mr. Verghese.
Well, I was actually wondering if we could hear from the department.
Okay, Megan.
Good evening. I would ask kindly if the healthcare system director could join me for this. Her name is Dr. Anita Everett, and I believe she may be in the waiting room.
Okay, let's let everybody in out of the waiting room. Alicia, if anyone's in the waiting room, let them in.
I think I let her in.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So I'm joined here by Dr. Everett, who I think can speak to some of this discussion far more eloquently than I can.
And Dr. Everett, have you heard the discussion?
I've heard some of it, and unfortunately I was trying to connect in, so I didn't hear all of it. But I am the official within the healthcare system, the Maryland Department of Health, to whom the CFAP team reports.
So part of the question is, when some of the responsibilities that CSAP has, and Delegate Austin can go through them a little bit, is whether that is actually a clinical role. It seems to me that those aren't clinical roles. But Delegate Austin will go through it, and therefore it's not in conflict with the language of the bill. They have responsibilities, but those aren't clinical decision-making responsibilities. But go ahead, Delegate Austin, can you please restate the particular areas so that she can actually give a specific answer?
Yes, I can. But before I do that, I believe that my understanding is that AFSCME and the department had discussions about their amendments. If I could get an answer to that, because it's like this order is a multi-page order, and on every page there's something highlighted that would be a problem if the bill was passed. I don't want to have to read through all of it. Like it says, they can request independent psychiatric evaluations at any time. They must recommend any changes. Prior to any changes being made, CFAP must approve it. So, and there are a multitude of instances like that in these orders. And so what I'm trying to get clarity on is two things. One, how does the bill affect their ability to do that? And two, one is, did you all agree with the amendments that came from AFSCME? And how would their abilities be affected if we don't take their amendments?
I'm happy to start that off. We reviewed the amendments that AFSCME sent the evening of March 17th, and the department was fine with those. Dr. Everett and I reviewed, we were okay with those. I do think, though, that there have been additional amendments, and I am attempting to trace down some of those pieces. And I think that's where, at least from the department side, right, I think we were aligned with defining and providing a bit more clarity to, right, like the role. I'm just reading here, right, that they are not the clinical, provider on record, right, but that there are instances and, worst case scenarios where they have to do something very quickly. And right, in concept, we were agreeing with those, and I replied back to Denise in agreement with that, right? And I think what we're seeing now before us does seem to go beyond our understanding of what we received on the evening of March 17th.
Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here's what I just want to explain about the process that may be helpful. My original intent with this bill was because I had patients, people in my community that I represent, who were involved initially in hospitalizations and then in aftercare. And I had families trying to figure out how to get involved in the process, how to support their loved ones through the process. And we're struggling to figure that out. And so I went to see where it was written down, what the process was, and it was written down nowhere. And I went to the Department of Health and I said, what's the process? Where can I see it? And it is not in regs even explicitly. There's different policies, but not even in regs explicitly. And so last year I started on this on the forensic aftercare side of it. And then this year I followed up on the CFAP side of it. And my intention had always been engaging with the Department of Health to say, can you tell me what it is that you do? What are your rules now? I want to write them all down so everyone can see them and they're in law. There's transparency and accountability to that. And then I want to add a few things. I want to add the fact that a patient involved in CFAP has the ability to themselves be involved and know what's happening. And two is to have an advocate with them. Often it's family, friends, maybe a guardian. Sometimes there's no one but the social worker from the public defender's office, but they have a right to have somebody with them helping them understand the process. And so essentially what I was writing down was, what is the process that is already in place? Dr. Everett has been extremely helpful in this process. Megan as well. Thank you to the Department of Health, the public defender's office. And we had reached essentially an agreement with the fact that this reflects current practice. And so I got AFSCME reached out right around the hearing. I appreciated that conversation. They provided me with a number of amendments, and I accepted probably half of them, maybe 2/3 of them. But part of what I did with some of the amendments that didn't seem to fit with my understanding is I checked back with the Department of Health on their process. And so it's my understanding that the amendments that you have, I can give you the number of the amendments, but the ones that I submitted reflect current practice with additional explicit language about participation of the patient and advocates. That is additional and explicit, although the department and AFSCME, everyone has said to me that they, encourage and invite people to have their advocates there. So I don't know about any additional back and forth, but there were several of the amendments from, and I should clarify, from the Department of Health AFSCME, because I think OPD is also represented by AFSCME, and I think they have a different perspective on it. So there's two different AFSCME locals in this. But so just to be clear, I'm talking about the Department of Health's AFSCME. Anyway, so I do think Dr. Everett's perspective is helpful, and in the conversations that I have had, it has been my understanding that the CFAP members are clinicians because they're making really important decisions that affect treatment. And so this is the distinction in my head. They affect treatment, so they are clinicians, they are experts, they absolutely need to understand that. And so many of the things that Delegate Alston listed, in my understanding, are things that absolutely affect treatment, but that's different from making a treatment decision. And that was the distinction that I understood from the Department of Health. And so when I spoke with some of the employees and they said it's different, I went back to check on what the policies are, and so that sort of is what's reflected there. So I do think, I hope that's helpful, and it may be helpful. I don't know if Dr. Everett, if you want to say more about, because we've had extensive conversations about this issue, if you want to say more about this distinction between.
Let me do this. Let me hear from Dr. Everett, then let me hear from Denise, then let me hear from Mr. Verghese, and actually, let me hear from Chris first, and then we'll go to Dr. Everett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As counsel, I think that it is becoming my opinion, my legal opinion, that from what I heard Delegate Alston read, to me, there's a difference between a decision being made and a recommendation. And if these FEPAP representatives are being asked to make decisions, that is not covered under recommendations about treatment because there's no choice. Those are decisions that need to be made. They don't seem discretionary to me. So I don't know if those decisions that the court order is requiring them to make fall under recommendations of treatment. They seem to be clinical decisions.
Okay, Dr.
Yep. So sorry. Yes. So we've been involved in that. And what Delegate Charkoudian said is exactly consistent with what, way we've been operating. And the spirit of this whole act, we're very much in agreement with, particularly the codification of the way CFAP's been working for a number of years now. So that is all to the good. There is a difference. And one of the gentlemen that I heard before I had to cut off had a brown sweater on, was talking about fiduciary responsibility. And that's sort of some of the language there. What it seems like the spirit of this is to have clinicians, people with clinical knowledge on the CFAP team, but they're not the treatment providers of record. I would say their relationship and their duties are different. And so someone even asked a question, would the health department, would my department, the department I work for, be willing to take on the clinical responsibility of the CFAP team? And I say, no, they're not clinicians. We don't want them. We want them to make recommendations based on, we've seen this person with schizophrenia and it looks like their illness is, reemerging. They can say things like that, but it's the treatment providers that make decisions. So recommendations, yes. Decisions, no. They do make some decisions with regards to what gets presented to the court, that gets presented to the board, the community monitoring board, but they're not the treatment deciders. And the reason that's important is because the way that plays out in real life in clinical settings is then you have you have the potential to have competing things, and you have the potential to have CFAP people involved in medication dosing and things like that. That's not appropriate for their role. So their role is observation and reporting, and they, certainly allowed to make recommendations. And the language that we'd worked on together with Delegate Charkoudian included that the spirit of that language to differentiate the roles, and that has gotten changed with the most recent amendments. And so we don't agree with the idea that they're treating clinicians.
Okay, Denise.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to disagree, but I do think we disagree a little bit. I mean, I think, they give, they have the ability to say yes or no. That's a clinical decision, not a recommendation. I mean, I think it's clinical. They're taking into consideration their mental state, mental health, the forensic background, the appropriateness of the recommendation. I mean, I think I see that Clara's still on. Clara, are you in a place where you can speak up?
Before yes or
Is
no,
it
with
better?
give me an example of yes or no. I'm not understanding. Yes or no can be clinical and it can be not clinical. Yes or no about what? And again, for instance, if we talked about emergency petitions, if someone's, it doesn't even take a clinician to do that. You can make some decisions just as just as a interested party and not be wearing your clinician hat to do that. So when you say yes or no, what are you thinking of?
Clara, do you want to provide a little bit more? Is it okay if I have one of our monitors answer that?
We're getting into this, so yeah.
I appreciate
Hi,
it.
good evening,
Thanks.
all. Thank you for the opportunity. So I believe what Denise is speaking to when she says giving a yes or no is what Delegate Alston was speaking to in the way that the conditional release orders, the majority of them are written, and that CFAP has to give approval or denial of changes to levels of care, changes to clinicians, changes to out-of-state travel. While we're certainly not the treatment provider, the initial support does have to come from that treating provider. We then are mandated by the court to give a decision in terms of these changes that are written into this court order. And in doing that, we're clinicians, we're making clinical decisions, we're weighing forensic backgrounds, we're looking at psychiatric history, we're talking with treatment providers. That is a clinical decision.
Dr. Everett?
I would say I wholeheartedly disagree with that term. I agree with the role and the value of having a clinically educated and clinically informed person make recommendations, but decision is the definitive thing. The judge makes the definitive decisions, and the treatment team makes the definitive decisions. So maybe there's a wordsmith problem with the word decision, but I do not agree with that, and I do not agree with the Maryland Department of Health taking on that language. It's a recommendation to the decision makers, which is the court or the treatment team there. So yes, anyway, I've said enough.
And I'd like to, I think that's a point, and maybe we have to get an AG opinion. I don't know. But it just seems to me that when a lot of these decisions are court decisions, that's not the courts are weighing in too, but no one's saying that they are acting as clinicians in what they're recommending. And so, go ahead.
That's the thing. They're informed by the clinical recommendations. The judges are. Okay. That's right. Yeah.
All right. So,
Madam Chair, can I ask for clarification?
Please.
So is the approval and disapproval that you just spoke about, is that able to be overruled?
By the judge or someone else? Is that what
Not necessarily by the judge, but what I'm getting at is I'm having trouble understanding how an approval or a disapproval is a recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Ferghese. And then whoever was speaking for your folks, Denise.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I think our folks are
My
just
apologies. Thank you.
trying to execute the court orders, right? I think that's probably a decision for the policymakers on the call,
Okay, Ms. Ferghese.
Thank you. So CFAP should absolutely be providing that information, recommendations, and guidance as to how an individual has presented in the past. what's happening, and then reporting that information, giving that to the treatment team who actually has that fiduciary duty that Dr. Everett was talking about. Social workers and lay people already have the ability to intervene in those emergency situations. The CFAP monitors and the department have to monitor whatever conditions are imposed by the court.
That's right.
There's no choice in that. They have zero choice in that. And there are contested hearings. It's not as though we go forward with the hearing and it's always that the department and the individual are in agreement on even conditional release. That's why we have this process. Our clients have the right to have jury trials on these matters. The CFAP has to monitor. As Dr. Everett said, it's monitoring, it's that observation and reporting. That is their role. And they're using that clinical expertise and skill set to provide that information to both the court as well as the treatment providers in the community. The dual role that they would be put in by making clinical decisions causes a conflict, because as social workers, as physicians, as clinicians, your role and your obligation is to the treatment of that individual. It's not to your entity that's employing you. It's not to any other organization. To put somebody with a dual role who has that conflict into a decision-making capacity to make clinical decisions for somebody when they don't have a treating relationship is not something that abides by any kind of ethical standards for any of the professional boards.
That's correct. Yep.
So I think, and it may be wordsmithing, Chris, I don't know, but I think when I read it, and Miss Bilal, I may not be speaking right, but what I thought is that you all were reading it as we're not clinicians. And I didn't read that. I read it as in this role, your key role here is not as the clinician, it is the monitor of the court order. You are using your clinical skills in order to inform that work and in a way that someone without that experience could not do. Am I right that you saw it as you're not clinicians, but you are clinicians, but you're using your clinical skill. You're not in the role of clinician, you're in the role of a clinical specialist who can now enforce or oversee or monitor the court orders. So that's for you, Ms. Bilal.
To be clear, I'm in agreement with everything that Sanjeev just said. So I may not be the person you're necessarily wanting that opinion from.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Denise. I'm sorry. Who were you having us? I apologize. Who is it that you're asking to speak up for your?
Yeah, feel free, Clara. I just wanted to make a small point.
My apology. Go ahead, Clara.
Go ahead, Clara.
So I would disagree with that. I believe that us having to give a yes or no to the numerous things that are written into the court order is a clinical decision. And I'm really worried about our ability to then
Let me
do our
back up. I'm
jobs.
going to interrupt for a second. When you say give a yes or no to the thing, so the court has an order, and when you say you're giving a yes or no, so the judge says, this is the treatment requirements, this is how many times they have to show up in clinic, plus they also have to report to their parole officer, plus they have to do this. What is the yes and no that you're giving?
Sure. So any changes to the court order as written has to be approved by the mental health team, which is the individuals treatment providers. And then that change also has to be approved, which is a yes or no from CFAP.
Meaning what? If the court says it and you all say no, then the judge has to go back and say.
It's not the judge. No. So it starts with the mental health team, and they can propose a change to the court order. And then that proposed change has to be approved by CFAP before the change can go into effect.
And what informs that decision?
What informs our decision?
So the treatment, you're saying the treatment team, meaning the people primarily responsible for the mental health component, say, I want to increase the medication.
Yes.
And
usually it has to do with housing or something like that. It's not typically medications.
So it's not typically a clinical issue. They're saying things like, we want to move them into a different housing situation.
So that is clinical because it would change the amount of support they get with their medications. It would change the amount of staff support that they're receiving. It would change the amount of structure that they have, the amount of supervision that they have, all things that are important to weigh when we're looking at an individual's history and the risks associated with that. So when we're giving that approval, which I'm calling a yes, or a denial, which I'm calling a no, I don't think we're going to be able to do that if we're not able to make clinical decisions because of all those pieces.
All right. Madam Chair, and then, yeah, I guess I'm using clinical differently. I think those are authoritative decisions. I guess I'm seeing clinical as meaning medical.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think given the complexity of this conversation, we probably do need to give our committee council an opportunity to better understand this dialogue. I'm going to make a strong suggestion to hold the bill and ask the stakeholders to work with our committee council for the clarity that they need. But I did also just want to address some comments that were made, just because I know that we are getting close to crossover, but this is a bill that has been, it is the work product of months of discussion. So I don't want there to be a perception that we're rushing, or that we're not being thoughtful, or that we are violating rules, because these meetings are they're a courtesy. We're not bound to have subcommittees. We are actually not even bound by open meetings law. But we try to be a very transparent committee. So I just felt it was really important to put that on the record, because I know that we're tired, and sometimes we may say things that we didn't intend to malign the work of this committee and this subcommittee, or the stakeholders. And as we know, our speaker has been very clear about ensuring that we don't assume anyone's intentions. So I'm going to make a request to hold the bill, but before we do, I just want to ask if our committee council, if there's anything you need further from this discussion, or if we think that we can accomplish it offline.
I think we can accomplish it offline. I do think this is a matter of language and interpretation. And so I would just like the opportunity to look at that more in depth, not in the pressure room of the subcommittee.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Christopher. And thank you all for taking the time to be here on a Friday evening. Thank you, Delegate Alston, for your advocacy. Thank you for Denise for what you're doing. And thank you, everyone else, OPD and the department, and Megan and Delegate Charkoudian. I just need to be clear, because Megan, you sort of said that there are some things that you think, and it's not clear that the things that you think could be taken in addition to what the sponsor has already taken are the things that address the outstanding issue. But if after reviewing things, there's some more, it helps to inform. I mean, obviously the subcommittee members will make a decision about what pieces we'll take and what we won't, but it is helpful. Delegate Charkoudian, if we know where all these folks are on those pieces, even as they work with Christopher, because we're really going to try and clean up any confusion.
Or I will I'll coordinate with folks, but it sounds like Christopher is going to do a legal analysis, which I think is great. Maybe it'll be helpful. So I'm not sure that I'll be helpful.
Yeah, that's fine. And we can talk about, and we're gonna go ahead and adjourn. But Megan, did you understand what I'm saying? Because you all had suggested that there are some pieces that the amendments that Denise sent over, you think would be clarifying. but we don't have that information of what you all think is clarifying. There's some things that she sent over that you're thinking are not helpful. We don't know what those things are, right? And that makes it difficult for us to process, right? So if you can get us something that says, these are the things that we think we're not taking up, that we actually think would actually help. Okay? So thank you. Anything else from any of the members?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, and I'll second that. Christopher, anything else from you? Madam Chair, anything else from you?
Just thank you all for the time and for the discussion. I know that it is late, and I appreciate how dedicated and hardworking this committee is. So thank you all.
Thank you all.